So imagine you're driving, right? Like using a GPS on your phone.
Sure, you just punch in the address and follow the line.
Yeah, exactly. But imagine the roads on the screen are literally rerouting themselves while you drive.
Oh, wow.
Like the map is actively shifting under your tires. Suddenly that static, comforting top-down view is basically useless.
Because you aren't just navigating fixed geography anymore.
Right. You are navigating this live, breathing, highly volatile system.
I mean, that is the absolute perfect way to describe the experience of navigating by mundane geomancy.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, you aren't looking at a fixed snapshot. You are trying to read, well, the active pulse of a society in real time.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are stepping into the fascinating and, frankly, complex world of mundane geomancy.
Which, for anyone joining us, is the ancient practice of casting earth oracles to map out major political, social, and environmental events.
Exactly. And we are not doing some hypothetical exercise today. We are evaluating a real, retrospective, weekly geomantic chart.
Cast for the province of Quebec.
Yes. Specifically for the week of July 13 to July 19th, 2026. So grab your coffee, because we are basically two geomancers geeking out and pulling apart the mechanics of how this chart predicted the week's actual headlines.
And just to set the table for you really quick, we are using traditional 12-house mundane geomancy here.
Right, keeping it classic.
We are. We're keeping the original chart data. We're using the traditional Latin figures, but, and this is key, we are also applying a very specific astro-geomantic overlay.
The Gerard de Cremona tradition.
Exactly. Though, I mean, historically, we should probably attribute it to the 13th century astrologer Gerard of Sabianeta.
Right, right.
So we have our 16 geomantic figures generated by the Earth Oracle.
Placed into the 12 astrological houses.
Yep. And then we lay a planetary framework right over the top of it.
Okay, let me stop you there, just to make sure I'm, visualizing this correctly.
Go for it.
If the base geomancy figure, the oracle itself, is like the black and white sketch of a situation, is the Gerard astrological overlay basically the color filling in the lines?
That's a great way to put it.
Like giving it shading and depth and context?
That is exactly the mechanism. Geomancy gives you the stark, undeniable bottom line. Like a figure like Amisio simply means loss.
Just flat out loss.
Right. But when you apply the Gerard overlay and look at the planetary and zodiacal rulers assigned to that house, you suddenly see, well, how the loss happens.
Who is driving it? What flavor it takes?
Exactly. It turns this low-resolution, pixelated image into high definition.
Okay, I absolutely love that. But before we even look at the actual news from that week in 2026, we need to understand what the chart predicted going in, right?
We need to know the baseline, yeah.
Like, what was the underlying condition of Quebec? Because when you read this chart, it points to a very specific root cause using something called the way of points.
Which is such a fascinating mechanic.
It really is. It's like the hidden underlying logic of the chart. And in this reading, it terminates in house 1.
The house that represents the province itself.
Exactly. The physical body of the province. And the figure sitting there is via, which literally translates to the way or the road.
Right.
So my immediate thought looking at that is that Quebec is just a passenger in a speeding car. Like, is it just along for the ride while chaos happens around it?
I completely see why you'd think that, but the mechanics of via in the first house actually flipped that dynamic completely around.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, the first house is the identity. It's the physical body. And via means momentum. It means transit. So the province isn't the passenger in the car.
It's the momentum itself.
Yes. The root cause of the week's events isn't some external shock hitting Quebec from the outside.
Oh, wow.
The chart is basically telling us your own internal state of flux is generating the friction.
So the chaos is coming from inside the house, literally.
Literally. Quebec is in motion, and that very motion is the catalyst for everything that is about to happen.
Okay, that ties perfectly into this intense double concentration we see in House 6.
Ah, yes. House 6 is heavy in this one.
In a mundane chart, House 6 is the sector of labor, public health, civil service, essential workers, right?
Exactly. The foundational maintenance of the society.
And both the part of spirit, which is like the animating intention of the week, and the part of fortune, the material benefit, fall into this exact house.
Which is rare enough on its own.
Yeah, and they both land under the figure Cauda Draconis, the tail of the dragon, which is, the ultimate symbol of exits, endings, and things just leaving the system.
Right. It creates this massive divinatory paradox.
How so?
Well, the chart is arguing that the province's material survival and its animating spirit for the week are inextricably tied to massive labor and service sector exits.
So the gain comes from the severance.
Exactly. It's predicting that whatever Quebec releases, exhausts, or loses in the labor and health sectors is going to be the very mechanism that keeps the society afloat.
Okay, so we have a chart basically forecasting self-generated chaos, massive institutional stress and loss, leading to survival.
That's the baseline going into the week.
Let's look at the actual historical record for July 13 to July 19, 2026. And just as a quick reminder to you listening, we take absolutely no political sides here.
None at all.
We are just pulling the objective data from the news to see how it aligns with the oracle.
The only allegiance we have is to the mechanics of the chart.
Exactly. And the data for this week is, frankly, extraordinarily heavy.
It really was a brutal week.
First off, over 160 active wildfires consumed 593,446 hectares of land.
Just an unimaginable amount of territory.
It was so bad it forced Quebec's wildfire agency, SOPFEU, to literally beg the United States and France for firefighters.
And the smoke was so intense it triggered a sudden tariff threat from U.S. President Trump.
Right. And meanwhile, you have the province's annual construction holiday travel period beginning, which opens with a horrific 5 fatalities on the roads in just 48 hours.
An incredibly dark start to a period that is supposed to be all about rest and recreation.
Yeah. Then on the political front, Premier Christine Frechette completely rebranded the governing CAQ party to bear her own name ahead of the October election.
Just totally changed the identity of the party.
And simultaneously, 32 of her sitting members of the National Assembly stepped down and decided not to run again.
A literal structural dismantling of a government mid-mandate.
But wait, because at the exact same time as all this loss, there was a massive flurry of rapid-fire spending.
Huge amounts of money moving.
A $70.8 million federal provincial injection for youth mental health was announced to the Air Ouvert program.
Right.
Plus, 1,650 new affordable housing units were announced in Montreal, alongside a permanent $100 million a year TVQ grocery tax exemption.
Just back-to-back major financial drops.
And finally, almost as this bizarre footnote, the last fugitive in the massive Desjardins data breach, Maxime Paquette, was arrested in Cancun.
When you lay all of that out, I mean, it is an incredibly dense, chaotic week.
It really is. So let's start lining up the chart with the reality, because some of these matches are frankly uncanny. Let's start with the most dramatic hit, the land domain. House 4.
Okay, yeah. House 4 governs the land itself. It's housing, it's the physical homeland.
And in the base geomantic chart, House 4 received a missio, the figure of loss.
Right. But when we apply that Girard overlay we talked about, it puts the astrological sign of Gemini in that house.
Gemini being the sign of the twins.
Exactly. And in this specific chart, Gemini was holding both lunar nodes simultaneously.
Wait, both of them?
Yeah. It held the north node, known as the dragon's head, which represents sudden intake and increase, and the south node, the dragon's tail, which represents draining and decrease.
So the overlay gave us twins. One twin is eating and the other twin is purging.
Exactly. And the reality of the news was a literal massive split in the land domain.
Because we saw a massive gain of 1,650 affordable housing units.
Which maps flawlessly to that north node of increase.
Right. And in the exact same week, on the exact same landmass, a catastrophic loss of nearly 600,000 hectares of land to wildfires.
That's the descending south node acting right alongside the geomantic figure of a missio.
So we have literal gain and literal destruction of the homeland happening concurrently.
I mean, it is arguably the most structurally precise concordance in the entire reading.
It's amazing.
Without the Girard overlay showing us those twin nodes in Gemini, we would have just seen loss and completely missed the bifurcated reality of a housing boom happening right during an environmental catastrophe.
Okay, I'm with you on House 4. That is wild. But I am going to push back on something because we need to talk about House 9.
All right, let's get into it.
House 9 governs courts, law, and long-distance travel. You mentioned earlier that the Cancun arrest of the Desjardins hacker showed up here.
It did, yeah.
But I have to ask, isn't that a bit of a Texas sharpshooter fallacy? Like finding a random global news event and retroactively cramming it into a Quebec Earth oracle just to make the chart look good.
Honestly, I would absolutely agree with you if it weren't for the highly specific planetary mechanics involved in the Girard overlay here.
Okay, explain that. What is actually in House 9?
Well, the base figure is Letitia, which means joy, uplift, or, a joyful resolution.
Right.
And then the Girard overlay places the planet Jupiter in the sign of Scorpio in that house.
Break that down for us. Why does Jupiter and Scorpio prove this isn't just confirmation bias?
It's because of what Scorpio governs. Scorpio is the domain of hidden things, forensic depths, secrets, and specifically other people's money and financial crimes.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Now put Jupiter in there. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, long-distance reach, crossing borders, and legal resolution.
Wow.
Yeah. When you combine Jupiter's cross-border legal reach with Scorpio's financial forensics, and then you cap it all off with the geomantic figure of joyful resolution.
You have a highly specific signature.
Exactly. It's not just a generic legal win. It is a triumphant international conclusion to a dark financial secret.
And the Cancun arrest of a cybercriminal who stole millions of identities fits that mechanical lock perfectly.
Perfectly. It's incredibly precise.
I see what you're saying. The specificity of Scorpio dealing with financial forensics totally removes the randomness of it.
It really anchors it to that exact event.
Okay, let's pivot to the institutional overstretch we talked about at the top of the episode.
Mhm.
We already know House 6, representing labor and health, had Cauda Draconis exits and drainage.
Yes.
But the overlay gives us something really interesting. Saturn in detriment in Leo.
This is one of my favorite placements to analyze.
We probably need a quick explainer here for the listener. I know Saturn is the planet of rules and discipline, but why does being in Leo put it in detriment? What does that actually mean in practice?
Sure, so think of Saturn as a strict, highly disciplined, no-nonsense headmaster of a boarding school.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
He thrives on order, cold facts, boundaries. Now, Leo is the sign of the performer. It's flamboyant, it's dramatic, it loves the spotlight.
So they don't mix well.
Not at all. If you take that strict headmaster and drop him into the middle of a loud Vegas nightclub, he completely loses his authority.
Right, nobody's listening to him in a nightclub.
Exactly. He's trying to enforce rules in an environment that actively resists him. That is a planet in detriment. It represents an authority structure trying to maintain discipline without the actual capacity, environment, or warmth to do so.
Which translates perfectly to the crisis with the Provincial Highway Patrol, the SQ, and the Wildfire Agency, SOPFU, that week.
It maps exactly to them.
The SQ surged their forces to try and manage the deadly construction holiday traffic, while SOPFU was completely saturated and begging for help from Maine and France.
The institutional structures, the Saturn piece, were physically there. They were trying to enforce order.
But their capacity was totally impaired. They were the headmaster in the nightclub.
Exactly. The structure exists, but it is running on fumes and completely disconnected from the resources it needs to succeed.
Okay, so if the institutions are breaking down and running on fumes, how does a government fix it?
Usually they just throw money at it.
Right, which brings us logically to House 2, the Treasury.
The money house.
The chart gave us Caput Draconis the Dragon's Head, representing aggressive intake and beginnings. And the Gerard overlay put Mercury in Aries here.
And Mercury in Aries is an incredibly specific energy.
Because Mercury is communication, commerce, and speed, right?
Right. And Aries is fiery, impulsive, and pioneering. When you put the planet of messaging into the sign of impulse, you get fast, almost aggressive financial communication.
So rapid-fire financial news.
Yep.
Which perfectly mirrors that sudden flurry we saw of the $70.8 million youth funding, the 1,650 housing units, and that TVQ grocery tax cut.
Just bam, bam, bam.
Rapid-fire announcements to the public. It reads like a government trying to project competence and offer immediate financial relief very quickly, right before an election cycle ramps up.
It is the ultimate manifestation of Mercury in Aries. It's not slow, deliberative budgeting. It is reactive, fast-paced financial deployment.
But, let's be rigorous here. No divinatory chart is 100% perfect.
Of course not.
And we need to look at where the oracle got muddy or just outright missed the mark. Let's talk about House 5.
Right, the house that rules morale, youth, and entertainment.
It contained the geomantic figure Pola the Girl, or beauty,
which normally indicates cultural harmony, pleasantness, good vibes.
But if you lived in Quebec that week, you were breathing choking wildfire smoke, reading about horrific road deaths, and dealing with a massive youth mental health crisis.
Yeah, not exactly good vibes.
So did the chart just fail on the morale front?
See, this is where the Gerard overlay actually rescues the entire reading.
Okay, how?
If we only looked at Puella, we would assume the youth were thriving and morale was high, which, as you said, is objectively false. But the overlay places the Sun, Venus, and Mars all in the sign of Cancer in House 5.
And crucially, Mars is in its fall in Cancer.
Right. It is severely debilitated.
Let's do another quick translation for the listener. What does the debilitated Mars in Cancer look like in practice?
Well, Mars is the warrior planet. It wants to fight, it wants to cut, and act decisively.
And Cancer is a water sign associated with home, nurturing, and deep emotion.
Exactly. So Mars in Cancer is like a soldier trying to fight a battle using a wet sponge in a cozy living room.
Okay, that's a brilliant visual.
The aggressive energy is trapped in an emotional, reactive state. So the intention in House 5 was Puella, a genuine attempt at care and harmony.
Like the $70.8 million youth mental health announcement, that was a Puella attempt to care for the youth.
Right. But that debilitated Mars shows the underlying structural distress. It wasn't a celebratory morale boost. It was an emergency patch on a broken emotional system.
So the aesthetic harmony of Puella was completely undermined by the debilitated planets beneath it.
Exactly. The overlay provided the crucial context that the base figure lacked.
But there were some pure misses, too. I mean, we need to be totally transparent.
Absolutely.
House 12, the House of Hidden Enemies, Covert Action, and Prisons, held Fortuna Major, the greater fortune.
Which, in mundane geomancy, predicts a massive, highly successful, hidden institutional rescue.
But digging through the news of that week, there was absolutely nothing that matched this.
Yeah, it is an honest miss. We just have to acknowledge that. I mean, sometimes the Oracle speaks loudly about something that never breaches the public record.
Like maybe a covert state rescue did happen behind closed doors.
Exactly, but as far as the verifiable reality goes, we have to call it a misfire in the chart.
I'd also point to House 10, the government. It had Rubius the Red.
Ah, Rubius. Volatility, violence, explosive scandal.
Right, and out-of-control scandal. Now, the CAQ party rebranding to the Frechette party and 32 politicians quitting is definitely chaotic.
Oh, for sure. If you were following politics that week, you definitely felt the whiplash.
But it was planned turbulence. It was managed. It wasn't the kind of raw, explosive scandal that Rubius usually demands.
I will concede that as a partial miss. The disruptive energy was definitely present. I mean, dismantling a governing party's identity mid-mandate is objectively a turbulent event.
Yeah.
But you're right. Rubius usually predicts something much sharper, more destructive, and far less controlled by the people involved.
Okay, so moving from the individual houses, we need to understand how the grand narrative of the week actually resolved.
The terminal sequence.
Yes, walk us through the terminal sequence of the chart. How did the Geomancy court rule on this week?
So the flow of time in a geomancy chart is read through a sequence of 4 final figures: the 2 witnesses, the judge, and the reconciler.
I like to think of it as a literal courtroom.
It basically is. The right witness and left witness are the 2 lawyers presenting the facts of how the situation unfolded. The judge delivers the final, unavoidable verdict.
And the reconciler is the actual sentence carried out, the long-term consequence.
Exactly. So the lawyers approach the bench. The right witness shows how we start the week. We got Fortuna Minor Lesser Fortune.
Which means starting with a slight advantage, but one that depends entirely on outside help.
Which perfectly mirrors SOPFEU, realizing they can't fight the fires alone, and calling the U.S. and France for reinforcements.
That's incredibly literal.
It is. Then the left witness shows the counter-argument, how things converge midweek. We got conjunctio conjunction. This is the figure of things coming together.
And we saw that clearly. Federal and provincial funding meeting, major policy announcements overlapping directly with the environmental crises.
Right, but then the judge delivers the verdict. And the judge is a missio loss.
Wow. And looking at the undeniable reality of the news, the week was defined by literal, profound loss.
It really was.
The loss of 593,000 hectares of land, the tragic loss of 5 lives on the roads, the loss of 32 sitting politicians, and a governing party losing its very name.
That is the irreducible truth of the week. The geomantic judge does not sugarcoat the reality. Substance departed the province.
But the reconciler, the actual sentence carried out after the verdict, is acquisitio, which means gain.
Yep.
How does a verdict of loss result in a sentence of gain?
This is the classic geomantic paradox. The reconciler doesn't cancel out the judge. It harvests from it.
Oh, I see.
The loss forced the gain. The immense stress of the environmental crises, the institutional fatigue, the political turnover, it all forced the government to open the treasury.
So the result of all that loss was massive legislative gains for the public.
Exactly. The affordable housing units, the permanent grocery tax cuts. The loss was the required price of the acquisition.
That is just fascinating. So, stepping back from all the data, what does this say about the Gerard di Cremona or Sabinetta overlay?
Right.
Because I know some traditionalists argue it overcomplicates an elegant Earth oracle.
Yeah.
Is it just a parlor trick, or is it essential to the practice?
Looking at the evidence we've just laid out, I mean, it is absolutely essential.
That really seems like it.
Without the astrological overlay, we would have completely misread the House 5 youth situation. We would have assumed morale was high when it was actually a reactive crisis response.
Yeah.
And we would have entirely missed the incredible twin nodes bifurcation in House 4.
That exact split between the housing gains and the wildfire losses.
Exactly. It provides the mechanical nuance that pure geomantic figures simply cannot provide on their own.
It turns a good, vague reading into a terrifyingly accurate diagnostic tool.
It really does.
Well, final assessment time. I give this a very strong score for mundane geomancy. 9 out of the 12 houses showed partial or strong concordance.
That's a great ratio.
The oracle successfully captured a province crossing a painful, incredibly complex threshold.
I agree with the score completely. And, it leaves us with something really profound to consider, especially when we go all the way back to our starting point.
Via in-house 1.
Yes. The chart argued that Quebec's crisis wasn't external, it was generated by its own accumulated momentum. The fires, the road deaths, the political turnover, these were all downstream of existing patterns.
Just carrying their momentum forward into the present.
The map in motion.
Exactly that.
Which raises a really important question for all of us listening. Like, how often do you look at a chaotic week in your own life and just blame external circumstances?
Right. You blame your boss, the economy, or just bad luck.
But when you really trace the wave points back to the root, are you just encountering the force of your own unresolved momentum?
Wow.
Are you simply in transit, fighting the friction of your own reflection?
That is a heavy concept to sit with. Are we just navigating a map we are actively distorting by our own movement?
Something to think about.
We will leave you with that to chew on. Keep questioning the narrative, keep looking beneath the surface, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.